Cross began asking questions around town. Most people were reluctant, their eyes darting away when Hale's name came up. But in whispers, stories emerged. Hale had been a man of influence, running a lumber business that kept half the town employed. He had friends in the sheriff's office, and his donations kept the church roof from collapsing. People remembered Eleanor too. Kind, graceful, always smiling. Some remembered how Hale's gaze lingered too long when she walked by. Others remembered arguments, though no one dared confront him. By the third day, Cross walked up the gravel path to Hale's house. The mansion stood tall and stern, with ivy crawling up its stone walls and windows like eyes watching the street. Hale himself opened the door. Time had carved his features, but the strength in his frame remained. His hair was silver, his voice steady, but there was a sharpness in his gaze, like a blade still hidden in its sheath. Cross introduced himself as a detective reviewing old cases. At the mention of Eleanor, Hale laughed, though it was a hollow sound. That woman? Dead and gone. Let sleeping dogs lie, detective. Nothing good comes from digging up bones. But Cross noticed the tremor in his hand as he gestured for him to leave. He noticed, too, the locked cabinet in the corner of the study, and how Hale shifted slightly to block its view. That night, rain hammered the streets as Cross returned to the house. He picked the lock with practiced ease, his flashlight cutting through the darkness. Inside the cabinet, beneath stacks of papers, he found a small wooden box. His pulse quickened as he pried it open. Inside lay a delicate golden locket, stained with something dark and rusty. He recognized it immediately from Eleanor's photographs. Beneath the locket, folded neatly, was another letter. This one was Hale's. Cross unfolded it slowly. The words were sharp, venomous, scrawled in angry strokes. She humiliates me, flaunts her purity, mocks me with her refusals. If I cannot have her, no one will. I will make her silence eternal. Cross pocketed the evidence and left as silently as he had come. The next morning, he confronted Hale with the box in hand. The old man's face drained of color. He tried to bluster, to dismiss it as forgery, but the weight of years cracked his armor. Finally, his voice broke, and the confession spilled out, not with regret, but with twisted pride. He had struck Eleanor on the night she died, enraged by her rejection. He had staged the scene, dragging her body to the riverbank, certain no one would question it. And he was right. For 25 years, no one did. Cross listened in silence, his expression unreadable. Then he spoke, his voice low and steady. The truth has a way of waiting, Mr. Hale. And now it's here. When Cross returned to Richard's house, he walked into the old man. All these years, Richard whispered, I wanted justice. But all I feel is emptiness. Cross placed a hand on his shoulder. Justice rarely fills the void. It only names the darkness for what it is. Hale was arrested. The town of Ashford, once silent, buzzed with shock. Neighbors who had once praised him now whispered curses. Their respect turned to disgust. For Detective Cross, it was another file closed, another secret dragged into the light. But as he boarded the bus out of Ashford, rain still falling on the windows, he knew the past would never truly rest. There would always be another Richard, another Eleanor, another Hale. And for men like Cross, there would always be another case. This is Crimson Files, where the truth, no matter how deeply buried, is never lost forever. The rain had been falling for 3 nights straight when Detective Samuel Cross stepped off the bus and into the forgotten town of Ashford. It was the kind of town that never made the news, a place where time dragged slowly, and secrets could rot quietly for decades. The streets were nearly empty, the storefronts dim, and the only sound was the steady patter of rain dripping off the tin rooftops. Cross adjusted his trench coat, lit a cigarette, and wondered why men like him always ended up chasing shadows in places like this. He had been summoned by a letter, handwritten in shaky script and marked urgent. The author was Richard Halloway, 72 years old, a widower who lived alone in a crumbling Victorian house at the edge of town. 25 years earlier, Richard's wife, Eleanor, had been found dead near the Ashford River. The official story was simple: an accident, a slip on wet stones, a fall that fractured her skull. The case had been closed quickly, tucked away as one more tragedy in a sleepy town. But Richard had never believed it. The letter claimed that he had found something in his attic, hidden behind a loose board. a note written in Eleanor's own hand, stained faintly with old blood. The note spoke of fear, of being followed, and of a man named Thomas Hale. Richard begged Cross to come, to open the past one more time before it buried him along with his unanswered questions. Cross knocked on Richard's door just after dusk. The old man greeted him with trembling hands and sunken eyes that had seen too many empty years. His house smelled of dust and medicine, and the walls were lined with fading photographs of a family long gone. He led Cross into a dim study, where a single lamp burned over a wooden desk. There, laid carefully on the table, was the letter. The paper was yellowed, the ink smeared, but the words were unmistakable. If anything happens to me, it will be Thomas Hale. He watches me. He follows me. I know he wants me gone. Cross read it twice, then a third time, his jaw tightening. Hale. The name meant nothing to him, but Richard explained in a low, bitter voice. Thomas Hale had been their neighbor back then, a respected businessman, wealthy, charming, and powerful in the small town. Eleanor had confided in Richard that Hale had made advances, unwelcome and insistent. When she refused, he turned cold, cruel even. Weeks later, she was dead. The police had never looked at Hale. Too respected, too careful, too protected. Richard had begged them to investigate. Cross agreed to take the case, not because of the money. Richard had little left to offer, but because he had learned long ago that the past never stays buried. The truth always leaks through the cracks. The next morning, he visited the Ashford police station. The case file on Eleanor Halloway was thin, a handful of photographs, a coroner's report, and a brief statement noting, "Death by accidental fall." Cross studied the photos. Eleanor's body lay at the edge of the riverbank, her face half submerged in mud, her head turned at an unnatural angle. The coroner's notes mentioned blunt force trauma but left the possibility of an accident open. Convenient. Too convenient.